Well, here's what's going on. You might be freezing up because the CIA might be looking at you and seeing you and zapping you because you know what?
Hey, Britt, what's up?
They don't need any warrants anymore. Let's go to the story over here. Dennis Kucinich, ladies and gentlemen,
Aw.
warns on new FISA Section 702 threat, an open door to the police state in America. Kucinich warns on new FISA Section 702 threat. And this is for Dennis Kucinich from Congress over here. Cleveland, April 16th, former Congressman Dennis J. Kucinich, who in 2001 led the effort against the passage of the Patriot Act and who relentlessly worked to repeal its provisions, called the House revisions to the Reauthorization Act, the reauthorization of Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, otherwise known as FISA, an open door to a police state in America. Tech companies will be forced to do the government's bidding to spy on their customers. The House tabled a motion to reconsider the bill last night, so it moves to the U.S. Senate. It not only permits the government to spy on U.S. citizens, it establishes a new infrastructure requiring Americans to spy on their fellow countrymen and women, Kucinich said. The government is not just revising FISA, it's revising the Constitution and striking the Fourth Amendment and the protections provided Americans from the government. Remember the government? Yeah, they're supposed to be working for us. No, they're infringing on our civil liberties. Elizabeth Goteen, co-director of the Liberty and National Security Program at the Brenner Center for Justice, yesterday pointed out on X, formerly known as Twitter, that the bill in its present form provides that any company or individual that provides any service whatsoever may be forced to assist in the NSA, the National Security Agency surveillance, as long as they have access to equipment on which communications are transmitted or stored, such as routers, servers, cell towers, etc., sweeping in U.S. businesses that provide Wi-Fi to their customers. So everybody, you got a computer, you got a phone, you got anything, you got to comply. U.S. Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, who is leading opposition to the bill in the Senate this week, appraised the House bill as on of the most dramatic and terrifying expansion of the government surveillance authority in history, ladies and gentlemen. It allows the government to force any American who installs, maintains, or repairs anything that transmit or stores communications to spy on the government's behalf. Chanda Masta, this is some scary thing. Not only are they bringing back the FISA warrants, without a warrant,
warrantless,
warrantless warrants, right? Whatever you want to call it right now, they're revising it. They're giving themselves even more power. Speaker Johnson, and Jamie, I just added a video underneath the Ron Paul video we'll play after. Speaker Johnson, the reason why he was made the Speaker of the House is for two reasons. Number one, he was supposed to be a free speech warrior, right? Remember when he had gone after Mayorkas for the spying and whatnot and said he was going to hold these big tech companies accountable, that what they were doing was wrong? That's one of the major reasons he took office. He took the speaker seat and his stance on Ukraine. Now, fam, he's flip-flop on both, Chanda.
Yeah, Pasta, this is one of the amendments that us in the trailer park really fucking understand, especially as former drug addicts, right? Because we don't want the government knowing what we're doing. We don't want them spying on our shit. And, like 250 years ago plus, we had an authoritarian government that could kick our doors in and come rifle through our drawers anytime they want and pretty much chump up charges and arrest us. And so we did this little thing called the revolution. And, we got a new one of these, a constitution that protects us from the government being tyrannical and coming into our house, whether it is through our front door or whether it's through a digital health device or a computer or any other thing. Now, they have been abusing this. We saw this so many instances over the last 15 years. Of course, Snowden came out, so bravely informed all of us what the NSA was doing, that they weren't even bothering with warrants or even FISA. They were just taking all of our shit. And then, of course, during the Russia Gate, we saw how much they abused FISA, right? Anybody they wanted to spy on, they absolutely could and did. And here's the sicking part about this for me. Almost most of your elected representatives, minus like 147 of them, fucking voted for this.
Yeah. I mean, they're not free speech advocates in Congress right now. They want to give themselves more powers. In fact, a lot of us were deplatformed when AOC wrote a letter and said, spy on your neighbors. This is doing the same thing. It's not just telling you to spy on your neighbors. It's forcing you to spy on your neighbors. That's the sadness of this bill. We have a little clip here from Ron Paul and Daniel McAdams talking about how this could get out of hand. If you want to talk to somebody about civil liberties, you got to talk to the libertarians. They know more about civil liberties than anybody, and they've always held the line. So take a look at this quick video. This was from Ron Paul and Daniel McAdams on the Liberty Report, showing us how the FISA bill, the new bill, because it is a new bill, it has everything that was there before, but a little golden nugget, an Easter egg for the security state, and an X for us. Take a look.
But the headline tells us a little bit about where we're going. And that is, this is from Zero Hedge, supercharged spying provision buried in terrifying FISA 702 reauthorization. I guess it shouldn't shock us there's something in there. It was already so bad. This discovery has nothing to do with providing more national defense. Matter of fact, it has everything to do with undermining, liberty and defense, because it's such an atrocious attack on personal liberties.
And remember what Johnson said. He said, well, when I was on judiciary, there were thousands and thousands of abuses by the FBI. But now that I'm speaker, I got a classified briefing and I'm all for it. So it shows that he's either criminally naive about this whole thing, in which case you shouldn't be the speaker, shouldn't even be in Congress, or he's in on it. He's one of them. He's against America. And it's terrible. Let's put that first clip up, because buried in the bill, HIPSI, the House, the Select Intelligence Committee, put some things in it, put an amendment to this bill that made it incredibly worse. It said, here's the hedge opener. On Monday, House finalized procedural business on a bill to reauthorize the nation's warrantless surveillance powers under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which Ron Wyden called one of the most dramatic and terrifying expansions of government surveillance authority in history. I will do everything in my power to stop it from passing the Senate, said Senator Wyden. Now, we've worked with Wyden in the past. He's been very good on civil liberties, and he's got a keen eye for these things.
That if you have access to any communications, the government can force you to help it spy. That means anybody with access to a server, a wire, a cable box, a Wi-Fi router, a phone, or a computer. So think for a moment about the millions of Americans who work in buildings and offices in which communications are stored or passed through. After all, every office building in America has data cables running through it. And the people are not just the engineers who install, maintain, and repair our communications infrastructure. There are countless others who could be forced to help the government spy, including those who clean offices and guard buildings. If this provision is enacted, the government can deputize any of these people against their will and force them, in effect, to become what amounts to an agent for Big Brother. For example, by forcing an employee to insert a USB thumb drive into a server at an office they clean or guard at night. This can all happen without any oversight whatsoever. The FISA court won't know about it. The Congress won't know about it. Americans who are handed these directives will be forbidden from talking about it.
So that's just incredible. The person who cleans the building at night can be forced.
All right, that's good enough.
To insert a...
Pause it real quick. Let's go to Chanda, and we'll go back to Daniel McAdams. Let that load a little bit. Chanda, they can say, hey, cleaning lady, you got to go in and put a thumb drive in there. and if you don't do it, we're going to deport you, right? Or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
if she's not a citizen, or tell the guy, hey man, you got to go and get this thumb drive in, and if you don't, we're going to charge you, no questions asked. You know what I'm saying? This little provision inside this bill makes this bill worse than ever before. I mean, we are turning into a serious police state over here, are we not?
Yeah, we are. But can I tell you the good news? They wanted to shove this shit down our throats for 6 years, but the Republicans, being the mighty fighter backers that they are, they pushed it to only 2 years. So, because it's a renewal, right? But these
Yeah.
omnibus bills, they always, there's so much shit in them that nobody even knows till weeks, months after they pass just how damaging they are to us, right? And they have this stuff planned out. They have this wrote out and thought out, months, years before we get a peek at it for a second, and then they're passing it within a few days, right?
And the speaker that was getting in there, Speaker Johnson, he was supposed to stop this stuff from even coming to the floor.
Oh, please.
Right? From
He's
even
such a
coming to the
plant.
floor. Like, if you want to get that FISA bill back on the floor, you need to gut it. Like, all right, you need to gut it. Remember when they sold this spying stuff to us? It's foreign adversaries. We got to keep an eye on China. We got to keep an eye on Russia. So the Democrats went on aboard with it because it was Russia. The Republicans went aboard with it because it was China. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Right. Let's listen to the rest of what Mr. McAdams says. Go back just 2 seconds. We'll play the rest of that out, and then we'll finish on up. But before we finish on up in this section, we talked about the way Speaker Johnson has flip-flopped when it comes to the security state, when it comes to freedom of speech, right? Now we'll show how he's flip-flops on Ukraine. Watch. Finish this, though.
Night can be forced to insert a thumb drive and download all the data of an employee, and that he or she cannot tell anyone about it, and the government will force them to spy on Americans. I can't believe it.
When I was listening to this and reading what's going on, I keep thinking back to our first experience with this type of issue, and my comment to myself was, it all started with the Patriot Act.
It sure did. Well, you remember what they did during the Patriot Act time. They said, we're at war, Ron. This is no time to be whining about civil liberties. That's how they rammed it through. We're at war.
If this stands, this is a tremendous victory for the police state.
Yes.
And so often in past times, people would say, how did the people go along with this? Why did they do it? There were a lot of good people in Japan and Germany and Italy and all these places, and yet they still went along with it. But here's an example of it. They don't keep their guard up, and they're taught to be obedient to anything that sounds like patriotism, and they go along with it.
They do go along with it because of the fear porn. All right. It's a time of war. Right now, we got to put aside our differences and just vote for more powers for the security state. Chanda, they're going to keep us safe.
And that's just it. That's exactly what they want. We've been told by the WEF in multiple years that you will have no security. There will be no personal security, no personal space, and you'll like it. You won't want privacy. Privacy is a thing of the past. Just give it up now. We're already conditioning the next generations to not have any autonomy or any personal security. No, like everything's out there in the open. Live your kinks in the open. Everything's done in the open. You will have no secrecy anymore. That's the future that they envision by 2040, 2030, depending on what agenda talking point they're throwing at you.
It's terrible. And the people keep bending the knee, and a lot of times they bend. It's the people who's in power, right? So if the Republicans in power, they say we got to do it. The Republican voters go along with it. But then the Democrats get power and they go, oh my God, why did I do that? That's the nuance of what's going on. That's why too much centralized power could never be a good thing. He flip-flopped on freedom of speech. He flip-flopped on protecting our civil liberties. He's also flip-flopped on Ukraine. At least that's what the rumor is. Let's take a look at this video here. And I don't want to see the tweet. I just want to see the video, Jamie. Bring it on up, and let's listen to what the speaker has to say about Ukraine. Remember that was the thing? It was Ukraine. Yeah. We can't give more money to Ukraine. We can't do that. Ukraine. Let's take a look.
We know what the timetable is. We know the urgency in Ukraine and in Israel. And we are going to stand by Israel, our close ally and dear friend, and we're going to stand for freedom and make sure that Vladimir Putin doesn't march through Europe. These are important responsibilities. A strong America is good for the entire world. Since World War II, really, the responsibility for the free world has been shifted onto our shoulders, and we accept that role. We're an exceptional nation. We're the greatest nation on the planet, and we have to act like it. We have to project to Putin and Xi and Iran and North Korea and anybody else that we will defend freedom. It doesn't mean boots on the ground. We're not the world's policemen, but we're going to do the right thing. And I think the Congress is going to take an important stand here.
So
Wow. he said it, Putin and Xi, we're going to stand up to these people. He named all the boogeymen, right? And also he repeated the lie that that Vladimir Putin wants to go marching
across
Europe. Like, come on. Final thoughts on Mike Johnson. Is he still your favorite Speaker of the House, Chanda?
No, Pelosi will always have my heart. But can I tell you, Big Johnson, as I refer to him, because he's the Big Johnson. You remember the Big Johnson shirts back in the 90s? It would be a bunch of cartoons and it would say Big Johnson on it. That's what I always think of when I see him. We knew that he was a bullshitter, a propagandist, a liar, and it hasn't taken long for his true colors to show. But this is a man who thinks that he's been tapped by God like Moses. Did you see that speech he gave where he was like, I knew taking this, that I had a role much as big like Moses? Like, delusional is where they are. And we knew he would sell us out at day one. I said on my show 5 weeks ago, this bill will pass. They will roll it into one with Israel, and they will get this money out because Ukraine is so important. They got to keep putting their money there. And that's exactly what we're seeing happen. I hate being right all the time, Pasta.
So do I, especially about these particular bills. It's pretty awful. I mean, I still think they'll get that. They call it a TikTok bill, even though TikTok or ByteDance is not mentioned once in the whole bill. Right. It's all about the Patriot Act for the internet. And, this is the second part of it here. They want complete control. They don't want their citizens saying anything. But meanwhile, all the Republicans, China.
They don't know the difference between Singapore and China. I mean, that's the level of intelligence we're dealing with with these people.
That TikTok bill, which is not a TikTok bill, is not even so much about China. It's also about Israel pushing the fact that TikTok had so much information and videos out against them that was bad against their narrative that it really hurt them.